thanks for clicking on the video. Today we are talking about something a little bit more abstract as we get closer to the open beta and server slam this weekend as I'm recording, and then the full release the next week after that. I want to talk about patterns that Bungie has set for themselves, and one thing in particular that Marathon really has going for its launch and post-launch content. And well, that thing is, the main reason I wanted to make this video is that it isn't particularly innovative, and it definitely isn't the first game within its genre. So today we're going to do a little bit of yapping about Bungie's history, their games, and how they've entered their respective spaces, and what it means for Marathon. But before that, if you like my content, do subscribe. I'm going to be putting out a lot more. Also come see me on Twitch, my Discord, you know the whole thing. If you're on mobile, hype the video. Heard that was pretty cool. So to begin, we got to take a few steps back, or a few years back. Bungie is a AAA studio, and whether you know that for a good or a bad reason, well, AAA studios are usually expected to lead the industry forward, whatever that means. But for the last 10 years, Bungie, this pretty much powerhouse of a studio, hasn't had any meaningful competition within any of the genres that they occupy, causing them to not really innovate on anything. This started with Destiny 1, which released in like 2014. It was pretty much the first FPS looter shooter MMO, especially the first with live service elements. There were things like Borderlands and stuff like that, but not games that were expected to live for years and years. And because it was alone in its space when it launched, there weren't any expectations, there weren't any quotas, there weren't any ideas of what the game even should be. It just had to be high quality, and Bungie did deliver eventually. And since Destiny was established and became this beacon of popularity, other games and studios have tried to insert themselves in the same market. Some big ones that come to mind are Anthem from EA, gone too soon, but that game was not given what it needed, but it was still called a Destiny killer, and well, look where that went. There were a billion other Destiny killers that I can't name either, and if you're looking at the game today, the only two that really exist are like Warframe and Destiny 2, and I wouldn't really even call those competitors. But the main issue with all of these games that came and went, or even the lack of games that came into the same market, Destiny and the franchise just didn't have any real reason to innovate. I think it's a pretty safe opinion to say that a game or any product without competition is just worse off. But now this brings us to present day, 2026, and why Marathon's situation is going to be different. Marathon, as you likely know, is not the first extraction shooter. It's not even the first extraction shooter in the last 12 months that's popular. It's not the first approachable style of extraction shooter, and it's not even the first sci-fi extraction shooter. Bungie is entering an existing population. There's established rules of the genre, there's established expectations, there's a lot to live up to, and that's new for Bungie. At least over the last 10 years, this version of Bungie. But because this is an established space that Marathon is entering, well, they're expected to do a bit more than just exist. They need to innovate or improve the space, not invent it, like they did with their last product, the Destiny franchise. Now, that is really exciting because it should have affected Marathon's development, and it's especially going to affect how they respond to feedback and continue to develop Marathon. As for some explicit examples of how entering an already lived-in space could do this, well, Bungie has already discussed things as recent as accommodating players from games like Arc Raiders. That has its aggression-based matchmaking, so peaceful players play with peaceful players, and PvP players play with PvP players. They've gotten the discussions about that, and, well, they've said no to that, but they have been at least looking at it. And that's a positive that we can see on the surface. They're analyzing data like that. They've had years to learn from Escape from Tarkov, which just recently hit 1.0. They know what works, what doesn't. That is easily the best petri dish that you can look at, especially when it comes to cheaters. And then hopefully on the other side of successful examples, hopefully they've seen the non-successful ones, like in the exact genre of sci-fi extraction shooter, we have the Psycho Frontier, which I was a pretty big fan of. That game didn't do very well. And so hopefully, even though that game perished and went down in maybe not fire, but silently, Hopefully they took some notes, they got player feedback and whatever data they could about that project so that they know how to apply certain things to Marathon. But to be honest, we're not going to know how exactly these third-party findings have improved Marathon. That's something that a bigger creator or channel will have to interview Joe Ziegler, the director, or any of the devs on, which hopefully is me one day, but I need that number down there to grow a bit more, I think. Now, as for some things that we can already look at that are within Marathon that I believe fall under the improvement of the extraction shooter genre and innovation in a sense. The first one that I want to mention is the art style. This is easily the best looking extraction shooter on the market, and it has such a unique style to it. This is something that nothing else has really come close to. Granted, that is subjective, so I'm not putting too much purchase there. The first big innovation, I really do want to say this, is going to be Marathon's narrative. Most extraction shooters fail to deliver a compelling narrative at all. I don't know anybody who cares that much about Arc Raiders or Escape from Tarkov's story. Bungie might be the first to pull this off and actually allow every player to engage and care about characters in the world, and they seem to reiterate this a lot, the world itself. As for how they've done this, well, Marathon already has an established universe and story dating back like 30 years ago, 20 years ago. So this isn't totally new and they have a lot of stuff to build off of. But clearly, Bungie is investing heavily in how that narrative is presented to us. Just look at the voice cast. They had the confidence to make a voiced cast trailer, which some huge names, of course, are Ben Starr and Jennifer English. These are like the two biggest names in gaming voice acting right now, and these were the two leads for last year's Game of the Year, Expedition 33. But while that presentation vocally is going to be sound, that's kind of a pun, the actual way that it's delivered to us, I'm not so sure yet. Bungie does campaigns very well. I mean, I'm sure you, as the average demographic of my channel, has probably played a Halo campaign. Those are phenomenal. The Destiny campaigns are actually pretty good now, pretty enjoyable. That being said, Marathon probably isn't going to use traditional cutscenes and missions. I mean, I think we know they're not going to. The story is most likely going to be delivered through vendor dialogue and menus, collectibles, and lore pages within your stash and stuff like that. But it would be really cool if Bungie did find a way to integrate cutscenes and stuff like that, because that's just where the Bungie sauce comes from. Granted, even though if it is traditional logs and lore, you know, the stuff that people don't really care about and can skip it pretty easily, the universe that it's in is very interesting. This is by far the most interesting extraction shooter to me narratively. The cast is very strong, as we saw, and that alone should get the baseline player somewhat interested. Because if they got a really good performance going on in their ear as they pick up an item or something like that, they might be inclined to pick up the next one and start putting pieces together. But moving on from story, there's a lot to be seen there. Hopefully we'll be able to see some in the beta. The next thing that I think Marathon has actually innovated on, without me actually playing it, is the end game. And that is with the raid style maps, the end game maps inside of Marathon, which are literally inside of the Marathon. To be honest, this topic deserves its own video, and I probably will make one as we get more information. But what this content is there are these maps that are going to have very similar mechanics and systems to a Destiny 2 or Destiny 1 raid. So that's like an MMO. That means puzzles, stuff like that, bosses, hopefully high enemy encounters, map areas designed around hazards and obstacle courses, just very engaging content rather than just being a play space. Comparing a map like that, which we know is coming in the game, this being the Marathon Cryo deck, and hopefully I would be extremely surprised if it didn't get more Marathon compartments. You know, maybe we've got storage, maybe we've got the barracks, the captain's quarters, whatever. I'm sure there'll be different maps, and I'm hoping that they're all the same style, you know, like a raid, the end game. But comparing that to competitors, Arc Raiders doesn't seem to have much of a meaningful end game at all. I think the most is like killing the matriarch and the queen, but yeah, that's kind of just like imposed on the map and you can totally ignore it, and I don't believe it's that rewarding. Tarkov's late game is mostly just killing bosses and going to labs, that is where you get the highest tier loot and the most money. So I think that is pretty rewarding if you can manage to do that a lot, but it isn't super different than just the normal way you play Tarkov. Marathon, however, having these maps that have puzzles and boss fights that Bungie's now known for could be absolutely massive. However, that's not to say there aren't risks with this new style of endgame. It might not be very accessible to the new player. There could be a lot of issues when it comes to cheaters and this kind of stuff, because imagine you kill a effective raid boss and then someone shoots you through a wall, sees you through walls, does whatever. That's gonna suck. And if this is an innovation that they want to bring to the extraction shooter genre, then they're gonna have to make sure that people can actually play it. And if they falter on that step, well, that's gonna be pretty bad. But if they do manage to succeed on that, this could bring a ton of players that would otherwise not touch Marathon or an extraction shooter into Marathon just to see what people are talking about, or at the very least get some viewers watching it. But among narrative and art style and the end game, there's a lot more that I think Marathon can do. They do, of course, have the shell system, which is like Heroes. That's pretty new, I think, in the extraction shooter space, and we'll see how that plays out. And of course, as time goes on, they'll need to continue to innovate with big updates and stuff like that. But the big thing to take away is that Marathon isn't the first. The last time that Bungie wasn't the first in the space was like Halo 2, or I don't know. They've been pioneers a lot, and now it's their turn to take an existing space and improve it, have their spin on it. I'm very excited to see how that makes Marathon hopefully a better product. But yeah, let me know down below what you think about Bungie's position with Marathon and how they're launching it. Do you think it's gonna flop? Do you think it's gonna Marathon takeover? Let me know down below. Also, thank you for getting this far into the video. Want to support me? Like, a comment, a subscription, hyping the video. If you're on mobile, helps out a ton. And yeah, if there is anyone watching this video, this should be uploaded on my Destiny 2 channel, but I am collaborating with like my Marathon channel. So just like subscribe to both down there if you want to see more of this stuff. And yeah, with that, I hope you have a really great day.